What is going on, guys? Jason Burke here, Styles Clash for Life, coming at you on YouTube, and today I am down to my top 5 of my 20 favorite horror films of all time. I've been counting down for the last 15 or so days to my favorite 20 horror films personally ever, counting backwards from 20 to 1, with number 1 being revealed on Halloween morning. I have already done number 20 through number 6, so if you want to see those 14 videos, go check out my channel and watch those and discuss and post your rankings. And now I am down finally to the top 5, my top 5 personal favorite horror films ever. I'm at number 5 today, and like I said in the last video for number 6, I have several of my favorite franchises represented here in the top 5, the classics. I've picked my favorite out of each franchise in the classics for my top 5. But this one, and some of them, I've picked other ones besides the original. This one, there's no comparison. The original is by far the best. It is 1996 Scream. What is a top favorite horror list without Scream? It revolutionized the genre. 96, it came in and it was sort of the modernization of the whodunits. It was the guessing game slasher where you had a killer amongst a group of friends, and you had to figure out who the killer was and what the motive was. It was the psychological warfare game where there was a killer you had to guess, and it revitalized the genre. It was Wes Craven directed it. Much like he did for Nightmare on Elm Street, he changed the genre in the 90s and spawned a whole ton of movies like this, but there is no comparison. This is the best one of that genre, in my opinion, of all time. I just love them. And again, there are spoilers in this, so if you have not seen Scream, what are you doing? You should go check it out. But pause this, go watch it, and come back. There are spoilers in this review, briefly. But again, 1996, Wes Craven directed it. My favorite all-time horror writer, Kevin Williamson, wrote it, and wrote it wonderfully. And it stars Neve Campbell with Sidney Prescott, a ton of others. I didn't write names down here, but Gale Weathers, Courtney Cox is in it. David Arquette plays Sheriff Dewey. The acting in this is awesome. Essentially, the plot behind this is Sidney Prescott, played by the beautiful Neve Campbell, who was a huge horror crush of mine for a long, long time after this movie. Neve Campbell, her mother passed away a year ago, or was murdered a year ago, I should say. And they never found out who did it. They suspected it was Cotton Weary, this guy who was put in jail for the murder. But the details were a little foggy. So it picks up a year later. It's about to be the anniversary of her mother's death. And she's dating this guy named Billy Loomis. And all of a sudden, we open up with the classic bait and switch, where Drew Barrymore opens the movie, and she's making popcorn, getting ready for movies. She gets a phone call, "What's your favorite scary movie?" And all of a sudden, things are changed forever. Drew Barrymore, the famous character, the most famous actress in the movie, who you think is going to be the final girl, dies in the first 5 minutes, gets brutally murdered, stabbed and hung and gutted in a classic visual and a great scene with her parents coming home screaming. And all of a sudden, and that, of course, was also ahead of its time, killing the first girl off, much like Psycho did with Janet Leigh as well. But they kill Drew Barrymore, and all of a sudden, a string of murders starts, and people start to wonder if they are connected to the murders of Sidney Prescott's mother from a year ago. And there's a host of characters in this. Everyone does a wonderful job. Sidney Prescott is a quintessential great final girl, plays it wonderfully. Billy, the creepy boyfriend who you think is on her side, you're really not sure, he's great. Stu, kind of the eccentric, crazy guy, he's good in the role. Matthew Lillard in that role. Dewey is the bumbling cop who's trying to control everything. Gale Weathers is the meddling reporter who's trying to get the scoop. Again, these characters are all excellent too. Also Randy, how could I forget Randy, who's an excellent character. He's sort of the one that sets the rules. He has famous scenes where he's trying to guess the killer, and he sort of gives you the rules to a modern horror movie. You know, never say "I'll be right back" and all stuff like that. Everyone's a suspect. He sets the tone and gives the foreboding aspect of this movie in a wonderful way. The movie concludes essentially with the killers being revealed. The first one is Billy, and the second one is Stu. The boyfriend is the killer, and the eccentric friend, Stu, is the killer. So you have, and the motive, of course, is they framed Cotton Weary. They were actually the murderers of Sidney's mother, and they wound up again framing the murder. And what the motive was that Sidney's mother was fooling around with Billy's father and caused Billy's father to leave his mother and leave the marriage and abandon him and walk out on his family. So Sidney's mother's past is causing these murders, and the children are often paying for the sins of the parents. And so again, well acted, well directed, some good murders. Tatum being raised up in the basement, the raising basement cellar door, garage door is great. The gutting of Drew Barrymore is great. The fake murder of Billy, which is corn syrup, and they use the, it's all, we all go a little mad sometimes, is great. So many iconic lines. I can quote the movie forever. Well scripted, well written, good twist at the end, good killers. Back in 96, it got me. I did not guess the killers correctly. Most people didn't. And the fact there was 2 killers was another big twist. In the end, Sidney and Gail and Dewey and Randy survive. Sidney kills Billy and Stu. And it goes off the air with Gale Weathers giving the report of the bloodbath that just ensued. Quintessential, classic horror movie. Everything a horror movie could want. Revitalizing and changing the genre. Wes Craven's personal growth shown here. Kevin Williamson writes it. Very self-aware. There's a lot of inside jokes. It's a very witty, bantery, self-aware, humorous kind of horror, which also led the way for other movies of its kind. It wasn't just horror, it was tongue-in-cheek, self-referential, self-deprecating humor inside this horror as well. So what did you guys think of Scream? Is number 5 too high or too low? Did you guys like this movie? What are your lists? Tell me down below. I'll be coming back tomorrow with number 4 in my top 20. I'm down to my top 4 now, so I'm very excited. Until then, guys, stay scared, dim the lights, lock the doors, and enjoy the movies.